Hello, welcome back to the channel. So I thought I'd do a wee video about Waterloo epic battles. I've been doing a bit of planning about what I want and what I'm going to do. And it feels like I'm going to chuck myself fully into it. Now for Napoleonic wargaming, I actually have Napoleonics in a couple of scales at the moment. 28mm and 6mm. 6mm is the entire Waterloo campaign. 28mm, Peninsula, armies, about 12 plus battalions aside, Light Cavalry and a Heavy Cavalry brigade. Basically, it's almost like one of those £90 boxes that's going out for Waterloo epic battles. But anyway, it got me thinking about scale and what you want to do on the tabletop. And as you know, I've been doing the Mechanics of War epic battles. I like playing around in small scales. And I actually picked up some 10mm Napoleonic stuff last year that I was hoping to get around to doing, but my head was swayed by other projects and they're currently sat in the box. It wasn't a massive investment, but so yeah, I think I'm going to jump into, no, I don't think, I know I'm going to jump into the Epic Battles Waterloo. And the reason being is what it's going to do is the size of the models and what you can represent on the tabletop changes in importance. I'm going to do a video on a war game and a question of scale. And what do I mean by that? So in 28mm, what I see is my units representing battalions. I'm only going to have a few brigades on the tabletop, maybe it's a division's worth, and that's going to represent a key part of the battle. Maybe it's where the enemy line attack columns attacking the line and fending it off, and that's what that represents. The other thing about the 28mm stuff is I get to explore and enjoy uniform detail. When you go lower scale, you can have a bigger table, and each unit's going to, rather than represent a battalion, you'll be able to have them representing brigades, and you've got like a grand tactical battle going on. So that's what I'll be looking for with small scale stuff. Now 6mm stuff was a joy to do. It was something I started about 18 years ago. Actually started it roughly about the same time I got married. So what the 10mm stuff does, or the 13mm, the epic battle scale stuff does, is allows me to, I mean this is a max of what? Allows me, it's not going to focus in, is it? Best laid plans of my time. It allows me to enjoy some of that uniform detail, but not get too hooked up in it and create a grand scale army. So then I started planning out what I wanted to do, what I wanted to get, what my collection endpoint or initial endpoint would look like. I don't think a collection's ever really done. There's always a new unit pops up that turns your eye. For example, I don't really need any more 28mm Napoleonics, but seeing the kind of ragged Peninsula unit that was on John Stallard's desk at the open day got me thinking, yep, I want to include that. So anyway, so what I've done is I've looked at a few resources, Waterloo books, and I figured my initial plan is to do a unit for every brigade that was at Waterloo. So I've looked through the sides and worked out what that would look like on the tabletop, and it'll actually give a fairly decent looking game. It's the kind of thing I've already done with 6mm. So what would that look like? So for example, the French is much more easy to work out than the Allies, of course, because the Allies were a mass of British, Dutch, Belgian and various Germans. Even one Spaniard with Wellington, but that's probably another story for another day. But anyway, so the French dead easy. So French First Corps, for example, had 1st Division, 2 brigades, 2nd Division, 2 brigades, 3rd Division, 2 brigades, 4th Division, 2 brigades. So that First Corps, what they'll look like is going to be 8 units and 2 artillery, plus the Light Cavalry, which were lancers. So that will be the First Corps. What I'll probably do is have 2 command stands for that, break it up so a couple of divisions is a tactical units, you know, under a brigade. A couple of divisions will be the brigade in the rules, and the corps commander being available for rerolls. So what I might do when I'm playing the game is have several corps commanders that can go for rerolls, or maybe use those a bit like the ADC rules from a general army. So what would that look like across the French army? So I've done my work. I've got my wee notebook in front of us. So what the entire French army would look like at Waterloo, using what I've done, and I've fudged a bit here and there. But I'll be looking at 18 line units, 5 light cavalry units, 4 heavy cavalry units, 4 line artillery units, 2 horse artillery units. Then the guard, again, slight fudge with the guard, but be an old guard unit, which will be 3 old guard units, and an artillery, heavy artillery there, and a young guard unit, which will be 3 young guard and an artillery, plus 2 guard cavalry units. And facing off against that, and would be the Allied army, the British army, would be 20 infantry units, 10 artillery units, a mixture of horse artillery and foot artillery, 3 heavy cavalry, and 4 light cavalry units. So straight away there, they're 2 reasonable sized armies. I won't kid myself, there's a lot of painting involved in that, and certainly what I learned with the American Civil War is there is a lot of painting, probably more painting than I was expecting. Certainly it's not as much as say a 28mm army, but there is a lot more than I was expecting. But what I'm looking forward to with this is the different uniforms. So that give that a sort of a breakdown for what the British would look like. So the British First Corps is obviously much bigger than the French Corps. So there'd be 4 Belgian units, Dutch Belgian units, a couple of artillery, a British Guard unit, probably make them large units. Large units I'll use 5 stands for. Hanover unit, British unit, and a KGL unit. When it comes to Brunswickers, for example, the avant-garde unit will be a small unit, excuse me, and a regular unit, a light cavalry unit, and an artillery unit. So I've kind of sketched out Quatre Bras as a way to sort of do something with it before we got to the big game of Waterloo. And the forces at Quatre Bras would be looking like for the Allies, 11 infantry, 3 light cavalry, and 4 artillery, one of which would be horse artillery. And the French would have 10 infantry, 3 light cavalry, 2 heavy cavalry, and 3 artillery, one of which will be horse artillery. So that would be the French initially have the advantage of numbers as British come in, hold them, counter-attack, push back. So I think that would be, just like I've done with the Antietam, I've kind of done some kind of seed mountain scenarios before I get to the big game of Antietam. Working towards this Quatre Bras would be what I'd be looking at. So I can have some games before we move on to the big show. Also looking at uniforms. So the French are pretty easy. I'll do some videos on how I paint the French. You don't have to worry about maybe creating some units there that aren't represented. See what happens with the guard and stuff, but that should be fairly straightforward. So the British, what I plan to do with the British, so British regular line infantry will be red tunics, grey trousers, and then I'm going to use coloured cuffs to show them off, and I'll probably use sort of yellows and greens. For the guards, white trousers, they'll be stand out. I mean, they'll be able to stand out because there'll be 5 stands per base, per unit. KGL, grey trousers, but all their cuffs, etc. will be blue. Hanover, so my Hanover units, I'm probably going to throw an extra, the 3 infantry units and a rifles unit in that, and that'll be kind of me using those spare rifles bases I'm going to have. I'm also going to look at maybe converting some field caps. So see how easy it is, like chop the shako and then a wee blob of kind of green stuff on that, and then just paint that up, and certainly do a few of those as well. Brunswick, I'm probably going to use French models and just paint them black. Dead easy. The Brunswickers, British shakos tended to be kind of more straight up and down, whereas French ones kind of tended to be a wee bit bigger. Nassau, I'm probably going to use French again. I'm only going to need 1 Nassau unit. Paint them green. Then what I might do, because I've always liked the Grenadier units with the kind of big hats, like bearskin hats. So I'll look at maybe converting a unit with those, or if I've got any spare Imperial Guard stuff, I can maybe add a bit of green stuff to the front and hide the plates. So that'll be my Nassau unit. My Dutch-Belgian units, and I know the Belgian and the Dutch had slightly different uniforms. The Dutch were more of the old French style. The Belgian were got British uniforms of blue. I'm just going to keep those as British uniforms, but blue. If I do anything that looks like the Peninsula, that'll double up for my Portuguese. Certainly in the big game I had, we had my Portuguese supplemented the Dutch-Belgian contingent. I'm going to do some videos on that. It was a really good event. And finally, the other thing I've got planned is, you know, my hussars and stuff I'll paint up as required. Is something I've done for my 28mm. They're not painted yet, unless I'd show them off. Is my Belgian Heavy Cavalry. So the Dutch-Belgian forces had a Heavy Cavalry brigade. I think it was 2 Belgian and a Dutch. Could be 2 Dutch and a Belgian. Now the Dutch Heavy Cavalry had sort of bicorn hats, whereas the Belgians basically had French Dragoon uniforms with carabinier heads. So that's what I've done for my 28mm. So I'm going to see about converting that up and see how easy it is for the epic battle stuff. And I plan to do my Belgian Heavy Cavalry unit like that. I hopefully will be able to pick up the British sprue with the Warlords Illustrated Heavy Cavalry, the French Heavy Cavalry sprue, because it's French uniforms, and give that a go, and I'll certainly show you how that comes along. I've got a wee order in with Warlord. Long story short, I've got a ton of nectar points to buy the big boxes. So I've put in a couple of orders with the Warlords for the infantry boxes, so I can get jumping on and just seeing how these are going to paint up, and I'll show them off and show how my allies are getting off. Already some of the guys that work at Warlords have put some pictures of stuff they've painted on some of the Facebook sites, and yeah, it kind of works the way I want it to. My uniform guide I use generally, and I do have other uniform guides, but I keep going back to this, which is a great book, and this is a Spanish, and it gives you tons of uniforms. So there you go. For example, what does a Nassau look like? Well, for me, that looks like a very French uniform, but painted green. In fact, I started a unit of those for my 28s. But anyway, that's my initial plans and planning. I'm going to be doing a few more videos for the epic battles, Waterloo, over the next week or so, as I try and manage my excitement with it coming out. And a couple more, just some general thoughts about black powder, because I've been able to play a lot of black powder and organise black powder since lockdowns ended. So hopefully they'll help anybody wanting to look at Waterloo and jump in. But anyway, I hope you're having a great day and your wargaming's going well for you. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts as well. So that's bye for now. Bye bye.